Well, thank you guys for inviting me here to speak. I kind of do this for a living. I speak in the classroom. So I am the entrepreneur in residence, and what that means is that I teach entrepreneurship, but I also am the liaison, kind of the connector between my students and the people in the community doing entrepreneurship. I'll try to stand back here so you can see the slides, okay? So that's what entrepreneur in residence means. So I teach in the classroom, but I also do a lot of speaking in high schools, in grade schools, just kind of around the community. And I really enjoy it. So I'm gonna talk to you guys about entrepreneurship, which basically means starting your own business. And I want this to be really informal. So if you have any questions, just ask. You don't even have to raise your hand. Just ask me about anything you want. And I'll have time at the end too, if you want to save your questions for the end. And I gave Alicia these slides, so if you don't want to write everything down, she can definitely probably email them to you or something like that. Okay, so I'm going to talk about how you can change the world. Anybody want to change the world? Yeah. Good. I'm glad to hear that. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about who I am first. I started out life as an engineer. Anybody in you want to be an engineer? I didn't either when I was your age. As a matter of fact, I didn't know what I wanted to be, and that's okay. That's totally okay. Yeah?
I don't mean to have a question this early.
No, go ahead.
But I don't really know what engineering is, like, because I feel, I don't know.
Okay. Great lead into what I'm going to say next, because I didn't know what engineering was either. I happened to be good at math and science. I got really good grades in math. To me, it made sense, a lot more so than like marketing or some fuzzy things, you know. I like numbers. To me, numbers make sense. So my guidance counselor, when I was a senior in high school, said, well, you're really good at math and science. Why don't you go into engineering? And I said, okay, that sounds kind of cool. I'm going to be an engineer, you know. I had no idea what engineers did. It just sounded like a cool major to me, and I was pretty sure I'd be able to get a job after I graduated, because my dad, by the way, my mom and dad didn't go to college, so I was the first one in my family to go to college. My mom and dad also never even graduated from high school. They were pretty poor growing up in Philadelphia. My mom was the middle of 5 kids and had to quit school in 10th grade to go get a job to help feed everybody. And my dad quit school, actually kind of quit, kind of got thrown out. He joined the Air Force when he turned 18. So neither one of them ever graduated from high school, but they were really, really smart and hardworking. And my dad would tell me, go to college and major in something you can get a job in. So I figured, well, engineering, I'd probably get a job in that. So that's what I majored in, and I had no idea what engineers did. So my senior year in college, I thought, what am I going to do with this engineering degree? And I wanted to do something exciting, and I wanted to do something that was not your normal sitting behind a desk kind of job. And so I joined the Air Force. And I worked on airplanes. Avionics is aviation electronics. So all the computers on board airplanes that make everything talk and make the plane fly and make it do all kinds of really cool, crazy things, that's what I used to work on and test. And it was really fun and really exciting, and it got me out of New Jersey and into California. So that was my first experience at traveling. So I'm really glad I majored in engineering, but I kind of knew I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. So as you're thinking about what you want to do with your life, don't feel like the decision that you have to make as a teenager is going to be the one you have to stick with the rest of your life, because you can always change. You can always be flexible. I changed my college major while I was there. I changed my career 5 different times, and I'm probably going to change it one more time, because before I retire, I want to be a social entrepreneur. Anybody know what that is? Well, I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to show you a picture of a social entrepreneur and tell you what he did. So I retired from the Air Force Reserves a couple years ago. I went back to school and got my MBA, so I also got 2 master's degrees while I was kind of working as an engineer. I got an engineering master's degree. Then I went back and got my MBA because I wanted to do something in the business world. And so after that, I became a venture capitalist. Venture capitalists invest money in startup companies. And I thought that would be really fun, because I thought startup companies were really cool, and I thought if I invested money in them, you know, I could help them grow and help them do kind of great things. Well, then I realized I didn't want to be a venture capitalist the rest of my life. I wanted to be an entrepreneur, because they looked like they were having fun. So every time in my career I looked at something else that looked like it was fun, that's what I wanted to do, and so I made a career switch. And you guys can do that too. You do not have to pick your one and only career, when you're still a teenager. You can switch halfway through, go back to school, or just switch. So I don't want you to feel stressed that you have to pick exactly what you want to do for the rest of your life, because you don't. So I became an entrepreneur. I started my own company. It's called Sunflower Business Ventures, and we did a lot of consulting for startup companies, and that company is still around. But then I started teaching at University of Louisville, and I found I really liked it. I really love my students. I started teaching undergraduates, okay, so that's, right after high school, you go to college for 4 years, so I started teaching them. Then I started teaching graduates, which is really cool too, because they're a little bit older, they have some work experience, and I found I really, really liked teaching. So I told you I have one more career that I want to do, and I want to be a social entrepreneur. So even though I've had kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 careers, I'm gonna quit this job someday, don't tell my boss I'm gonna quit, and do something else, okay? So you might ask me, the title of my presentation is How to Change the World. So don't you want to know if I changed the world? Okay, good, somebody asked, excellent. I feel like I'm changing the world every day. You know how? By talking to people like you. Because, well, let me tell you what I'm doing. Without your permission, I'm doing something right now to you that is very invasive. I am planting a seed in your brain. Whether you want me to or not, it's planted in there right now. It's the seed of entrepreneurship. And this is how I'm changing the world. Now, that seed's in your brain right now. You don't have to do anything with it. You can just ignore it. Or, if you kind of like what it's starting to do, you can help it grow. And I'll be there to help you, and there's a lot of other people in this community that'll be there to help you. And you may wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning one night with this brilliant idea and say, Suzanne, it's all your fault, because you planted that seed in my brain, and here it is starting to grow. So that's how I feel like I'm changing the world, by talking to people like you, by working with my students, by working with other entrepreneurs, and helping them change the world. It's kind of cool. I love my job. Okay, so I have a problem. I don't have a problem. There's a problem that exists. And entrepreneurs solve problems. I don't know if you knew this, but every entrepreneur in the world has solved some sort of a problem. So if you want to start thinking like an entrepreneur, look around you and look at the problems. Some of them are just frustrations. Some of them are real world problems like starvation, poverty, hunger, that kind of thing. But entrepreneurs solve problems. So here's a problem that I'm trying to solve. And it's a statistic that kind of makes me a little sad. Almost half the people in this country, at one time or another, think about starting a business. They think about it, but the real problem is only about 10% of them ever do it. So have any of you ever thought about starting a business? Okay, good. Have you ever done it? Okay, that's the problem. So why do you think people don't start businesses? What do you think they're afraid of? Failure, sure. What else?
It's expensive.
It's expensive? Okay, what else?
Like the platform support.
Okay, yeah, what else?
Knowing how to take the first step.
No, okay, I don't know what to do first, right? These are all absolutely good answers. Anybody else? What do you think they're scared of?
Other people.
Yeah, sure. People telling you you're an idiot, your idea's stupid, and it'll never work. Entrepreneurs get told that all the time. So let's see, no one will fund me. I can't start a business in a recession. It's not a good time in the economy. I wouldn't make a good entrepreneur because I don't like risk. I'm afraid to fail, that's a big one. And I don't have the skills, I think you mentioned that. Okay, these are all valid reasons, but you know what? They're all baloney. They're myths. Because what I'm going to talk to you about today is how to overcome all of these. When you're afraid of something and you do it anyway, that's a really powerful feeling. Have any of you ever been afraid of something and done it anyway?
Yes.
You want to share? What have you been afraid of?
Riding a roller coaster. Yeah.
Riding a roller coaster. Oh, I love roller coasters.
Traveling on an airplane.
Traveling on an airplane. Okay, yeah.
Now I love it.
Right. Because if you're afraid of something and you do it anyway, that's a really powerful feeling. Maybe it's going off a high diving board. Maybe it's swimming, period. Maybe it's speaking in front of people. Do you know a couple months ago I had to speak in front of 850 people? Oh yeah, no, I know, I was terrified. It's one thing to speak in front of this little small group, but getting up there with lights and microphones and 850 people and you can't even see them, that was terrifying. But you know what, I did it. Even though I was afraid, I did it. So what I'm gonna tell you is these are all myths. And if you're afraid of of starting a business, you need to do it anyway. And then it won't seem so scary. So here's what I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna show you pictures of people who have changed the world, entrepreneurs who have changed the world. Now this is the interactive part. So I want you to tell me who they are. A lot of them you may not recognize. Some of them you might though. So I'll show you like an older picture when they were young, and then a more recent picture, and then I'll give you a quote that they have about their entrepreneurial experience, and sometimes it's about failure. Okay? So let's see how many of these you know. Don't expect to know every one of them. Does anybody know who that is? Probably not.
Rock nice hair.
It's a man with nice hair. He does have kind of nice flow going, right? So that's his young picture. Here's his older picture. Does that help anybody? You're close.
Carnegie.
You're close too.
Rockefeller.
He's an inventor.
Oh.
Edison! Yes! Very good. Thomas Edison. And what did he invent?
And other things.
He invented a lot of other things. Do you know what else he invented? I'll give you a hint. Movie cameras. And we all have them in our phones now, right? Movie cameras. The electric car battery. Yeah. So he invented quite a few things. And I think you can agree with me, he changed the world. We'd be sitting in the dark if it weren't for him, right? But do you know what he said? He said, I've not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that didn't work.
Yeah.
So every time he tried to make a light bulb and it didn't work, he said, okay, good, let's try a different one. Okay, good, let's try a different one. He didn't let failure stop him from trying, because he knew eventually he was going to make it work. So that's what he has to say about failure and fear. Are you ready for the next one? Yeah. The next one I think you're probably going to know. Ready? Who's that? Yes, Oprah Winfrey. Now you might say, is she really an entrepreneur? Did she really change the world? And my answer to both of those is yes. She is an entrepreneur, and she did change the world.
She's amazing.
If you know anything about her, she grew up very poor, single mom. She wasn't a single mom, she was raised by a single mom. She was the first female news anchor to be on television in her region. She also is currently the first woman, not just black woman, but any kind of female, to own her own production company and produce her own TV show. First woman to ever do that.
Her mom used to like make her sleep on the porch. Like her mom was amazing.
Your mom used to what?
No, her mom.
Oh, her mom. I thought you meant your mom.
That would be weird for you to bring that up.
I know, right? Her mom made her sleep on the porch?
Yeah.
Well, here's what she says about failure. It's a great teacher. And if you're open to it, every mistake has a lesson to offer. So what she's saying there is she made a lot of mistakes in her life. We all do. But the key is not making the same mistake twice. So you learn from your mistakes. And that's what she did, and she changed the world. She's still changing it to this day. Okay, the next one. Look familiar to you? I know for a fact. The gaze. Okay, I know for a fact that this guy has touched all of your world in some way. That is a more recent picture. He died. Any clue?
He looked, I don't know.
I was thinking, but I don't.
Yeah, I don't think it is. But
Who? Nope.
Yeah.
Okay. You'll recognize
Oh, I
knew it! Oh my gosh.
I knew it was him.
Oh my gosh.
Yep, you're right. So Walt Disney, how did he change the world? He created the first animated, meaning cartoon, full-length movie. Back in the day, cartoons were really short, like a couple minutes long. He said, you know what? I want to create one that's an hour and a half, a full-length movie. And do you know who the character was that he created?
Mickey
Mouse.
Yes, but what was Mickey Mouse's first name? It wasn't Mickey.
I remember being taught this. It was something.
Is it on? I don't know.
He was on a steamboat, this mouse, and he was driving the steamboat.
Steamboat Willie.
Steamboat Willie, yes, Steamboat Willie, exactly. And then he eventually, I know, Steamboat Willie Mouse doesn't sound right. So he changed the name to Mickey Mouse. And then, as you guys know, he opened up all kinds of amusement parks in California and Florida and Europe and all this kind of stuff. Anybody been to Disneyland or Disney World?
Yeah,
I have too. So he changed the world. And here's what he said.
Don't go.
If you can dream it, you can do
Unless you're a
it.
kid, stop.
If you can dream it, you can do it. So if you guys are dreaming about starting a business or dreaming about some kind of a career, he's telling you, you can do it. Do you think he ever failed?
Yes.
Do you think he ever was afraid to do something? Yeah. And he did it anyway. All right, here's another hard one.
Oh.
He looks so familiar.
Oh.
He is a social entrepreneur. So he is alive today, and I'll show you a picture of him today. He is trying to solve the problem of widespread poverty.
His name's over the E.
Yep, good, close. His name is Dr. Muhammad Yunus.
That was not cool.
Well, yeah, I know, there's not gonna be in there.
Not one.
I don't want you to feel bad.
I was just guessing there.
Here's his story. Anybody hear of a little tiny country called Bangladesh?
Yeah.
It's a really poor country. Well, back in the 70s, long before you all were born, I was born, they were at a civil war trying to break away from Pakistan, okay? So people were dying everywhere. It was a very poor country, you know, a lot of war. In the middle of all that war, guess what happened? A cyclone came through. A cyclone is like a humongous hurricane. Came through and killed half the population of the country. 500 million people died from the cyclone. So Muhammad Yunus said, you know what, I've got to help these people somehow. Here's what was happening. TVs were popular in the 70s. I mean, if you think about it, when I was born, we didn't have a TV in our house. And then by the time I was in the 70s, we had one black and white TV, a little tiny TV. So what these TVs were doing was news like this was all of a sudden coming into people's living rooms. So they could watch TV at night at the news and see what was happening in Bangladesh halfway around the world. So you know what people did? They said, oh my gosh, we have to donate. We have to, you know, donate to charities that are helping the Bangladesh people. And they did. But guess what happened? All that money went to Bangladesh, the government, and the government was corrupt. So the money never reached the people. So it is sad. So you know what Yunus said? He goes, you know what? I'm an economist. I have banker friends all over the place. I'm going to try to lend these poor people money. And everybody thought he was nuts. A lot of entrepreneurs, people say, you're nuts, that'll never work. But he said, no, I'm gonna do this. And I'm gonna lend money to poor people with no collateral, so they don't have anything backing those loans. And he goes, and I'm gonna lend to women, not to men. And I'm gonna lend to rural people, like in the poor sections of the country. And all his banker friends, you know what they said to him? They said, Yunus, you're crazy. Why would you do that? We lend to men. We lend to people that can collateralize that loan. So they have a building or a fleet of cars or something to back the loan. We lend large amounts of money. You're going to lend small amounts of money to rural women who have nothing. You're nuts. So none of the banks would lend him money. So Yunus said, you know what he said? He goes, I'm going to take my own money. He took $47 of his own money and started lending it to poor women in Bangladesh. $7 for you, $9 for you, $4 for you. And he taught them what you can do with that money. Some of the women bought a goat, so they would sell goat's milk. So they had enough money to buy another goat. Then they had baby goats. So you see what a little $7 loan would do? Another woman bought a couple of chickens and sold the eggs. So he empowered these women to start businesses and become entrepreneurs. This concept is still in effect today. It's called microfinance. Micro means small, finance means money. Microfinance, small loans, rather than just charity, rather than just here are shoes, here are socks, here are blankets. It's here's $7 and I'm going to teach you how to make a business out of it so that you can support yourself and your children and your family. So he was one of the world's first social entrepreneurs. Not the first, but one of the big ones. And here's what he says. Making money isn't fun. Contributing to and changing the world is a lot more fun. And guess what all those bankers, those male banker friends of his that told him he was crazy, when he started to be successful, you know what they told him? They said, Yunus, this is brilliant. But you know what? So the name of his bank was the Grameen Bank, G-R-A-M-E-E-N. It meant village, the village bank. And all his male banker friends said, yeah, it's brilliant, Yunus, but you know what? You need to change the name of that bank. And he's like, why? And they said, well, you need to change the name of the bank to the Grameen Women's Bank because all you lend to are women. And you know what Yunus said? He goes, sure, I'll do that. You lend to men. As soon as you change the name of your bank to such and such men's bank, I'll change mine. And of course they never did. I love that story. Okay, let's see if you know this next person. Another female. Obviously this was a long time ago, probably the 1920s. Nope. She also passed away, but this was I think she was in her 80s there, or 90s before she passed away. She looks good, huh? She started a company called Estee Lauder. As a matter of fact, her name was Estee Lauder.
She was beautiful, no wonder.
So let me tell you her story. She had an uncle who was a chemist. And he would make all these really good face creams and lotions and all, but he didn't know how to sell. He didn't know how to run a business. He would just make them and give them to his family. She went up to him and she said, Uncle, whatever his name was, I can help you build a business around this. I can sell this stuff, this face cream, the hair lotion, the perfume. And we're gonna start a company. And the uncle said, sure, if you think you can do this, go right ahead. You can have all my products. And she started this company called Estee Lauder, named it after herself. You might not have even known that that's a woman's name.
Her name is so like
It's
she
French.
was born to do.
It's French, Estee Lauder.
So bougie.
Do you know, I just looked it up today, this company is worth, I wanna say, $50 billion? Yeah, it's a public company. And do you know that it has a lot of brands under it that you've probably heard of? MAC brand cosmetics, Bobbi Brown,
Wow.
Clinique,
I didn't know.
Aramis.
I didn't know.
They're all her brands.
No.
She bought up all those brands. That's what makes her such a huge company, Estee Lauder. So let's see what she says. She says, I didn't get there by wishing for it or hoping for it, but by working for it. So if you're afraid of hard work, you gotta face that fear and do it anyway. Do you think she made mistakes along the way? Oh, heck yeah. You think she was afraid? Yeah, probably about a lot of things. She was a business person back in the 30s and 40s, 1930s and 40s. Women didn't do business back then. But she did. She changed the world. Okay, this one you may know.
Adam Sandler?
I know this is Ashton Kutcher.
No, that's not. But you know what's funny is Ashton Kutcher played him in a movie.
Oh really? Okay. Because Ashton Kutcher started to do
Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
That's funny you said that because Ashton
look
Kutcher
alike.
played him
But
in
he
the
started to
movie.
do like he started to be more involved in
I thought it was Steve
What
Jobs.
is it
I was like, y'all sound real weird.
Do you have a question? Okay, you're just stretching. Okay. Yeah, so that's Steve Jobs. Everybody knows Apple computers, right? He changed the world. Do you know he was not an inventor? It's a technology company, right? They started out with computers, and they went to smartphones, and they went to all kinds of things, but he didn't invent any of that. He was a marketer. Do you know who the brains behind the technology was, his partner?
Whoa.
First name Steve, last name
I'm
Wozniak.
yeah.
But get this, Steve Wozniak was not an entrepreneur, not a business person. So he would invent things, but just like Estee Lauder's uncle, who was the chemist, he wasn't an entrepreneur, didn't know how to do anything.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs said, Woz, we're gonna build a company using your technology, I'm a visionary, I can change the world.
Exactly. He gets all the credit.
He does get all the credit, yeah. Yeah. So what he says is the ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do.
But he did. He was the one that took the action.
He did? Do you think he made mistakes along the way?
Oh.
Yep. He actually got fired from his company. You know that, right?
I watched the.
because they couldn't figure it out.
Well, you know what he did when he was fired? He went and started another company. Anybody know what the name of that company was?
Windows.
Pixar.
Oh.
No, Windows is Bill Gates. That's his
Really?
Pixar.
That's. I didn't know.
Which was eventually bought by Disney.
Disney.
See this? These are all related.
That's crazy.
Sorry, I'm in your way.
Monopolies.
He's that bad.
Okay, now I'm going to show you
Yeah.
someone who's changing the world right now. You probably don't know who he is. That's his younger version in the 70s.
That's yeah. Now he's taking all the facial hair.
So this is what he looks like today. His name is Steve Blank.
Was that
Everybody
like
knows.
Steve?
Yeah, I know. You're right. I just noticed that. So he is a professor at Stanford University. Anybody ever hear of Stanford? It's a pretty well-known university in Northern California. I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to take a class there, by the way. So anyway, Steve Blank says,
Isn't it me?
you need to be admitted. Steve Blank says entrepreneurship isn't a career choice, it's a passion and an obsession. So he teaches, he's also a serial entrepreneur, serial meaning he's done it many, many times. And I actually met him, I might have taken that picture out of there. But he teaches a class in entrepreneurship. And if you go to this website, his class is called How to Build a Startup. It's free. It's fun. There are no tests. and you can take a class at Stanford University. And put it on your resume and say that you took a class at Stanford.
Do they ask if it's on school or not?
Do they ask if it's what?
Do they ask if it's online or not?
Does it matter?
No.
A lot of higher education is gonna be all online going forward.
That's really.
my prediction. Okay, so just to show you, that's me and Steve Blank about 5 years ago. I actually met him. So I went out there and he did a train the trainers class. So he trained me and 200 other people on how to teach the stuff that he teaches. So now, in where I teach at University of Louisville, I teach what he teaches. So it's kind of cool. But so here are a couple of links, and I'm gonna email.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yep. So there are all kinds of things happening in the entrepreneurial world right here in Louisville, and it's pretty exciting. By the way, you're in one of the greatest startup communities right here, Glow Touch. I mean, you guys are really lucky to be around people like Lydia and her husband Vic, and Sterling is sitting right here. I mean, they're all brilliant entrepreneurs, brilliant. But the rest of the community, there's all kinds of stuff going on. So if you ever want to have a calendar and say, what do I want to do this weekend, or is there anything on entrepreneurship going on? A lot of them are, have you ever heard of Wild Accelerator? Oh. You have?
Yeah. Yeah. We have one. Wait.
It's an accelerator, so it's a program, it's a program for women entrepreneurs. Yeah.
We talked to, we had her, she came in, the girl who does Wild.
Stacy Servo,
Yeah.
real tall with red hair, yeah.
Oh.
So there's all kinds of stuff going on. But I want to tell you guys about this one, Startup Weekend. It's a really fun, a lot of high school students, all different ages, all different walks of life. And you come, and if you have an idea, great. If you don't have an idea, that's fine, you can work on somebody else's. But basically you start a company in one weekend, and you learn a lot. We usually have one in the fall and one in the spring. So we'll be having one in the fall. It's outside of school hours, so you don't have to worry about that. You start on a Friday night, you end on a Sunday night. And so you guys need to learn about it and go to the next one.
It's like, you just sleep over.
Well, no, you go home and sleep.
Okay, I was making sure that.
But they do feed you for the whole weekend.
Okay.
So you will have food for the whole weekend.
Does it cost?
Yeah, I think it's like $30, but you can get some student discounts and maybe Well, work on it, somebody. Work on getting them to pay for you to go to Startup Weekend. Okay, so
We go home and come back.
here's you go home and go back. So I told you about all these entrepreneurs that changed the world all over the world. I'm gonna talk to you about 3 of them right here in Louisville. Maybe even you'll get to meet them. Maybe even they'll come in and speak to you. Okay, the first one is a former student of mine. This is her, Jennifer Williams. Actually, that's a former student of mine too. He works for that company now. And the company is called Cuddle Clothes. This company was just named the fastest growing company. It's about 5-6 years old. Do you know what this company does? It makes plush replicas of your pets.
That's not
I've
a real
seen that.
dog.
No.
I know the
Yeah, I've
black
seen
one
that.
actually has them.
Oh, what?
I think that one
I
is
knew
good.
the cats,
The
but
one-
they look
the
good
one
in
beside the
dogs,
cat.
like dog. I want one.
Okay, so let me show you. See this?
Oh my gosh. I almost
That's
didn't do
my cat Lola.
It's called
Mhm.
Oh my god.
Which one is which? Which is the real Lola?
That's
We
your
don't
real
know.
one.
Okay, we know which one's the real one.
I know, but
The one that.
isn't that cute? Such a
Yeah.
cute one. Oh, perfect timing! I just put Lola up here.
You have a little girl.
I know.
I know.
So Jennifer Graham is the founder of that company. It has over $3 million in revenue. Let me go back so you can see it again. It was just named the fastest growing company in Louisville. She bought a building, she bought a manufacturing facility in China. Do you think she made mistakes along the way? Do you think she had people say that's a dumb idea? Yeah. Do you think she was afraid and did it anyway? Okay, I got another local entrepreneur. Ready? Anybody know who that is? She was just on QVC.
Wicked?
Wicked Sheets is her company. Her name's Ellie Sherman.
That's such a nice name.
So Allie was an NCAA soccer player at Bellarmine, and she has a condition called hyperhidrosis. Anybody know what that is?
Yes.
Sweat a lot. Exactly. You guys know it. It's where you sweat a lot. So she would wake up in the middle of the night and her sheets would just be drenched, and she's like, you know what? There's gotta be a better way. So she started making these sheets made out of dry fit material. You know, like, dry fit, like the workout stuff, yeah. And so she started making these sheets. She now has over $1 million in revenue. She was just on QVC. And she is right here in the wall. Do you think she made mistakes along the way? Heck yeah. You think she was afraid to quit her day job and start this company and raise money? You think people told her that's a stupid idea? It'll never work? Yeah. But she did it anyway. Now, is she changing the world? Well, let me tell you something. I bought a set of those sheets. They're amazing. So she changed my world. Okay, I got another one. This is also one of my former students. Anybody know who that is? He was, before he was my student, he was a star running back at St. X, and then a star running back at U of L football, and then he became one of my students, and now he runs, his name is Tendai Charasika. He runs a company called SuperFanU. It's a fan engagement platform. So if you're a U of L Cardinals fan, you would go to SuperFanU and you can buy all kinds of card stuff. You can talk with other people that are also U of L Cardinal fans. Same thing if you're UK or something like that. But it's a fan engagement platform. So is he changing the world? Well, he's changing the way college sports fans interact with each other. So yeah, do you think he was afraid to quit his day job? He has 3 or 4 kids, three kids, I think. So yeah, he was probably afraid to do this startup. But do you think he conquered those fears and did it anyway? Yeah, he did. Think he made mistakes along the way? Yeah. He was my student. He made a lot of mistakes in class. Don't tell him I told you that. But he also would be a great speaker for you guys. So, my question to you is, who's ready to change the world? Okay, well, remember that seed that I planted in your brains when I first walked in here? Maybe it just grew a little bit today. And if you let it, it can start to grow. And it can take that idea that you have in your brain and maybe do something about it. I gotta tell you something though. You know what an idea is worth? Like, what do you think your idea is worth?
Nothing until you make action.
Who told you that?
My brain.
See that? That seed I planted, because that's what I said. Some people say, oh, it's $1 million idea or something. No, it's not. It's an idea right now that's worth nothing until you build some value around it. So if it just sits in your brain, it's going to continue to be nothing. I feel like you've heard my talk already.
We're connected that way.
Yeah, that idea that seed of entrepreneurship and that idea that you might have is not going to be worth anything unless you do something about it. And I gave you a bunch of resources here. And hopefully Alicia can share these slides with you because there are links. And I want to see all of you at Startup Weekend because I think that would be a really cool way to learn entrepreneurship. I want all of you to take that free Stanford University course, which will also teach you a little bit about entrepreneurship. And I want you to stay in touch with me if you want to. On the very first slide is my email address, my cell phone number. I really should put up there, I don't know if you guys tweet or not, but I tweet from the Fork Center for Entrepreneurship. Go all the way back to the beginning here, it's gonna be a while. But the Fork Center is the U of L Center for Entrepreneurship. And I tweet about entrepreneurial things all the time. Where is it? I don't even have it up there after all that. It's not up there. Is this a whiteboard?
Yes.
Yeah, here we go. Cardinal red. So it's at FORCHT Center. But you don't pronounce the CHT, it's fork, like a knife and fork.
Like the bank?
Yes, it's the same guy.
Oh.
So the guy who started the bank actually gave us a couple of $1 million to start this Center for Entrepreneurship.
A small loan.
He's an entrepreneur. He's had an idea to start a bank. The idea was worth nothing. Then he started the bank, he worked hard, people told him he was stupid, it'll never work, and he conquered his fears, and yes, now he has millions of dollars to donate.
Put a big fork. I think
Yeah.
it's a great idea.
I wanted our logo to be something to do with a fork, but everybody said, well, people don't think it's a restaurant. The bank uses a fork.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you tweet, you can follow me on Twitter, and I post all kinds of stuff about entrepreneurship. So now you can ask me questions. You can run your idea by me if you want to, and I can give you advice, or you can ask me about pretty much anything. My cat, my dog, I have a dog too, and another cat. I know.
Do they have cuddle clones too?
No, not yet, but I'm, thinking about it. So originally her idea was when your pet dies, you have a cuddle clone. Well, obviously Lola isn't dead. She was up there. But then she found a couple other markets. If the parents are going through a divorce and the kids go to live with mom for a couple weeks, dad for a couple weeks, they can't always take the pet back and forth. So a lot of parents buy their child a cuddle. What about a cuddle clone? So that's a market. What about when you go away to college? If you all have pets, you can't take your pet with you, but you could take a cuddle clone. What about if your grandma has to go into a nursing home and can't take her pet? Well, you get her a cuddle clone, and she has a cuddle clone. So there's all kinds of different markets, not just for when your pet dies.
You're never too old.
I'm literally gonna order my dog one.
Can you tell my
today.
dad?
Like, he's
I'm going to
understand.
get me a build a bear.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I know like a lot of people have this concern. I know I do. I'm thinking about starting a business. That like the market's already been filled. Like I know a lot of people would say, okay, I would make this business off like somebody else already out there with a similar company. So how do you combat your competition?
If there's competition out there, that's a good thing. Now let me explain. If there's competition out there, it means there's a market for it. Entrepreneurs solve problems, okay? They either solve pains or create gains for people. So if there's something out there already, what you need to do is steal the problem and come up with your own solution for it.
I'm like better.
Do it better, do it faster, do it cheaper, do it more innovatively. Do it in a different way that solves that person's pain or creates a gain better. So study your competition. Figure out what they're doing wrong. And then launch your startup and do it right. But there's a lot you can do before you actually quit your day job and put a lot of money into your startup. And if you take that Stanford online course, it will talk to you about customer discovery. So what you need to do is go out there and talk to your customers and say, tell me about this problem you're having, or tell me about this pain, or tell me about the last time you went to a restaurant that was a bakery or something like that. What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? What do you wish was there? This is if you're starting a bakery. What do you wish was at the bakery? Do you like the hours that they have? Do you like the prices? Do you like the products? And find out where you can add value that your competition doesn't. Make sense?
Thank you.
Sure. What other ideas are out there? I know there's some.
Just one.
Yeah, sure.
Can you talk about, or maybe you did, I'll be that person.
That's good.
What are they called, B companies?
Ah, benefit corporations, yeah. So, before, there used to be not-for-profits and for-profit companies. Not-for-profit companies usually got funded by donations and grants, and their mission was to solve a social problem, right? Solve something in the world, whether it's poverty or hunger or animals or something like that. It's a non-for-profit. They don't have to worry about making a profit. And then for-profit companies, by the law, had to maximize their profits. That's just what they have to do. So they couldn't make decisions that was going to be better for the environment or better for the people in the neighborhood where they operate. They are required to maximize their profits. That's just by nature of what a business is. Well, recently, a couple people said, you know what, there's got to be something in between. There's got to be a corporation type or an entity type that can be a for-profit, but care about the environment, the people, the planet, and profits. And so they invented a B Corp. And it is state regulated, and Kentucky just a couple years ago started allowing benefit corporations. And for a while there, we only had one, and it was a company called FMS, Facilities Management Corporation. Believe it or not, it was a janitorial service. And the CEO of that company, Scott Collins, said, you know what? I want to care more about the environment and my people and neighborhoods than I do about profits. But by law, I can't because I'm a company. So he helped get legislation passed to create a benefit corporation. So now in Kentucky, you can get certified as a B Corp. And it's called, let me write it down, where's my little thing here? It's called something, so you don't have to just focus on profits. It's called the triple bottom line. And so you focus on profits and two other things that start with P. Any ideas what they might be? People. People, good.
Production.
Nope. I already said the word a couple minutes ago.
Wait, is it like the earth, something like the earth?
What's the earth?
Planet,
Who's that?
one of the.
Right.
Somebody decided.
Alicia.
So this is called the triple bottom line. Instead of just focusing on profits, now you can focus on people, planet, profits. That's a benefit corporation. And there's an organization called Canopy here in Louisville that is helping to attract more benefit corporations to Kentucky. Canopy wants, and Scott Cullums is affiliated with that, Canopy wants Kentucky to be the place to be for benefit corporations. Yeah, I know, right? It's kind of exciting.
That's what I want to say.
Let me talk a little bit about a social entrepreneurship, because I mentioned that when I talked about Muhammad Yunus. So social entrepreneurs use entrepreneurial thinking, like that seed I planted in your brain, and business practices to solve social problems. They're not necessarily a nonprofit. You can be a for-profit company and be a social entrepreneur solving a social problem. Did you guys ever hear of WaterStep?
Yes.
Okay, Mark Hogg is the CEO of WaterStep, and his company uses technology to help the problem of clean water access in countries that don't have clean water access. And he sends down filters and pumps and all kinds of things.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I understand what you're saying in the abstract, but concretely, so he's a for-profit, this person, the example that you gave with.
WaterStep?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
So.
I actually think WaterStep's a non-for-profit, but I can give you an
It's a-
example of a for-profit.
So like would Tom's be a B Corp?
It depends. You have to go for B Corp certification, so you have to apply for it and the state has to approve it. And then there are certain steps that you have to take, and you have to get audited and, to make sure that you're doing all the best practices for benefit corporations, yeah. But you can do social good without being a B Corp.
Right.
You absolutely can. So let me talk a little bit about Tom's. Everybody familiar with Tom's, the buy one, give one? Okay, so Tom's is a shoe manufacturer. Right, so if I bought a pair of shoes, they would give one to some poor children in another country, okay? They became criticized a lot because think about what they were doing. So these poor children would get a pair of shoes, awesome. You or me, I bought the pair of shoes, so I feel good about myself now because I just gave a poor child a pair of shoes. What was happening in that poor child's village? So he would wear the shoes until they wore out or he outgrew them, and then he'd be barefoot again. So the question was, is Tom's really solving a problem?
No.
Or they put a Band-Aid on it? They're putting a Band-Aid on it,
I
right?
have a question.
So wait, let me finish the Toms and then you can ask your question. So what Toms did, they were pressured to say, okay, you know what you really need to do? You need to put a shoe factory in that village, create jobs so that people can make the shoe, people can get jobs, make money, and then buy the shoes. That's solving the social problem. Remember Muhammad Yunus? He didn't just give the women $9. He gave them to them and said, let me teach you how to use that $9 to buy a goat to make a business, or chickens or something. That's solving a social problem, not just handout, not just charity. That's social entrepreneurship. Yes, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I didn't let you answer your question. You can ask it now.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
That's what I was about to ask about the factories. I didn't know if I didn't know if they use ethical practices in their factories. That's what.
Well, we don't know. I guess you could do a report on Tom's shoes. I know that they built their model based on a company in Africa called Aliberte. Aliberte, look it up. Because they actually put shoe manufacturing plants in the country that had the poverty problem. And so Tom's was pressured to do something like that as well, and that's what they've done. Want me to tell you about my favorite social entrepreneur here in Louisville? Her name is Colleen Clines, C-L-I-N-E-S. She has started a company and runs it. It's called the Anshaw Project. These don't write. A-N-C-H-A-L. Anshaw Project. So she, when she was in grad school, took a trip to India and saw a lot of these very, very poor women that either their father or their husband or their brother forced them to work in the sex trade industry. You all know what that is, right? And they had no way of getting out of it. So she said, I've got to do something to help these women. So she went in and taught them a craft. She was a design major at Rhode Island School of Design. And she said, I'm gonna teach these women how to make things that are a craft. So she took the sari, which is what the Indian women wear, and the edge of the sari is called the anshal, and that's what they wrap the babies in. So she said, I'm gonna start a company called the Anshal Project, and we're gonna take these used saris, and I'm gonna teach these women to sew these beautiful hand-stitched scarves, quilts, pillows, and then we're gonna sell them. She's a non-profit company, but she doesn't have to rely on donations and grants to fund because she sells these beautiful scarves. Now, what is that doing for the women in poverty? Number one, it's teaching them something, a skill that they can use to make some money. So they are working by making these scarves, they're selling them, so they're making money in a way that's not in the sex trade industry. So they have another form of income, and slowly they're quitting being sex workers and just doing the scarves. And you know what they're doing with the money they're making? They're putting their children into schools, so they're educating their children, they're buying homes, and they're basically creating a better life for themselves and their families. That's not just putting a Band-Aid on the problem, that's solving the problem for these women and their kids. So she's my favorite social entrepreneur. If you ever want to have a great speaker, Colleen Clines would be awesome. And I also own about 13 of her scarves and 3 of her quilts, and whenever I go to a wedding, I buy a quilt, you know, for the bride and groom, because it comes with the story of the artisan. That's what she calls her ladies, the artisan who actually made the quilt or the scarf. It's a pretty cool story. Yeah.
I actually did that exact thing.
What's that?
I was working for an NGO in Guatemala
Yeah.
and taught some women in communities to crochet. And we had this, and they also learned how to write their name as well. So we had inside of the crochet bags
Yeah.
their name and their story.
Awesome.
But I just didn't, when I got back, I was
Yeah.
23 and
Yeah.
rudderless. But
Awesome.
it's true, you got its own idea until you actually, you know.
Do you know, my grandmother taught me to knit and crochet before I could read and write.
Oh yeah.
And to this day, I love to crochet. I love to watch football on a Sunday. Anybody else like football? I love football. But you know what? Sitting there for 8 hours on a Sunday, you feel like a slug. So, but if I'm crocheting, you know, because I don't have to watch them, you know, I can just kind of look up and look down. So I crochet these beautiful blankets and Afghans, and I just give them away to friends and family. But yeah, so that's that. You know, I don't feel like such a couch potato watching football for 8 hours a day. I can sit there and crochet. What else can I answer for you guys?
I have a question.
Yeah.
First I have to tell you something, because it builds up to my question. So, I want to start something that I feel like now that I heard of what the benefit corporation. Now that I heard of what that is, I'm not sure if this would be that, but I want to start. I want to start a company that gives teenagers and elementary students in struggling neighborhoods an opportunity to be tutored in school subjects, and also but through art.
Yeah.
I want to give them that opportunity, and then of course the teenagers would eventually have jobs there and be paid to tutor the younger students. And I want to do that, but I kind of want it to be a nonprofit. But I don't know. I want it to be a nonprofit because I don't want kids to have to pay to come there. But I do want to end up selling it to schools in order for it to kind of be a pairing between the schools.
Great, it's a great idea. You need to do it. You know what you need to do first is figure out what's out there already, because like I was saying before, find out what the competition is and then do it better, do it different, do it in a better way. But yeah, I think it's a great idea. When you have a nonprofit, there are a couple things, 2 things mainly that you need to think about. One is, how are you going to measure social impact? How are you going to measure whether your nonprofit is doing what you want it to do? And you can measure it in a lot of different ways. Maybe number of students that come through there, number of them that get jobs, number of them that go on to college. But you need to figure out what you need to measure to determine whether or not your nonprofit is actually solving a problem. The second thing, and this is a lot harder, financial sustainability. How are you going to ensure that you're going to be around, for years to come? Because if you rely on donations, you're gonna be spending 90% of your time going out and getting people to donate. And you're not gonna have a lot of time to work on your actual company. So if you rely on donations, it's gonna take a lot of your time and energy. Look at Colleen Klein's with the Onshaw Project. 75% of her funding is through selling of her products. She still gets donations and grants and all that kind of stuff, but she doesn't have to spend nearly as much time going out there and seeking donations. So think about how your company would be funded.
So I guess my question would be, do you think it would be better to start as like not just like the company that I'm thinking of, but like in general, would it be better to start as a nonprofit and then move into making profit to get the company started?
You can remain a nonprofit but still have revenue. The Onshaw Project has revenue. She sells scarves and blankets and gets revenue into the company, but she's a not-for-profit. So if you can, and that's how she is financially sustainable. So if you can figure out how to be financially sustainable and how to measure your social impact, you'll be golden. It's a lot of hard work, and there are a lot of people around that'll help you do that. There's something called the Center for Nonprofit Excellence, CNPE, and they actually help nonprofits with a lot of things. So I guess my advice to you all, if you have an idea, is don't just do it in a bubble, like by yourself. Reach out, because there's all kinds of people that are willing to help you. I think it's great that you guys want to be entrepreneurs and change the world, and I think it's awesome. And now you've got that seed of entrepreneurship planted in your brain that I put there. I think it's great.
I'm ready. Well, I'm not ready when I'm like 22, so I can focus.
Okay. Well, you know you can start. You guys know Anjali, right? She's how old? 17, 16?
15.
15, and she's started.
She's 16.
Oh, did she start?
I think she might
she's
be 16.
about to turn 16.
She just turned 16, she told us.
Either way, she's a teenager,
Yeah.
and she's changing the world, and I love it.
You said, wait, what?
So we can, I don't know. I feel like okay, my question is, how long do you think it's important to develop your idea before you take off?
You never stop developing your idea. You always have to be, here's a term. Have you ever heard the term pivot? I know they use it in basketball. Well, guess what? They use it in entrepreneurship too. And what that means is, okay, if your idea is going and you're going in this direction, and something you realize, oh, maybe I need to reach this population, or maybe I need to do this. That's called a pivot. And you should never stop pivoting, because that's how you stay relevant. You should always be flexible. My students make fun of me because I say that all the time. The hallmark of any successful entrepreneur is flexibility. You should always be flexible. So always be willing to pivot, always be willing to take good advice. But you could start working on your idea now. Start creating value around it. Start developing relationships of people who are going to help you. Find out what's out there now. Do a Google search. See what organizations are out there now that maybe you could partner with. I was on the board of an organization called Safe Place Services. Are you guys familiar with that at all? You see the yellow signs? Yeah, you see them everywhere.
Yeah.
That company was started in Louisville 50-some years ago. Now it is in 48 states. And when you see that yellow sign, so there's a national Safe Place, and then there's the local one. When you see that yellow sign, it means that 24/7 free help for any teens that are in crisis. So I was on the board of that organization for 6 years. That might be an organization you'd want to partner with, because those are the populations maybe that you want to reach. And if not, they would at least have contacts that are in those neighborhoods. Entrepreneurship can't be done in a bubble. You've got to reach out. And there's tons of people out there willing to help you. Sure, I'm excited for you guys. Remember what I said about fear. It's a powerful thing to be afraid of something and do it anyway. There's another saying that I like. It's fear is a cruel and unpredictable emotion to let call the shots in your life.
There's this one, it's just like, I can't remember exactly, it's like, fear cannot live without you, or like, oh, your fear of survival is entirely dependent on you, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. I love quotes. Yeah, here's one. Eleanor Roosevelt. No one can make me feel inferior without my permission. I love that quote.
Eleanor was a bad.
Yeah. What else? Is all good? Ready to go change the world?
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
for coming.
I'll leave this, that's a hard copy, and then I've emailed these to you, so there's
Okay.
links that
Yeah,
they
yeah.
could go to.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And it's really like,
I mean, you were so
thankful for like all the speakers being you, like what, I don't know. For like you guys, all the speakers and you that come in here and to do this, it's really inspiring. Like I'm gonna do this one day. I'm gonna come in and speak to
Good.
other kids and like tell them about it.
Well, you know, it's funny because, thank you for saying I inspired you, but you guys inspired me. You guys are gonna change the world. That's how I'm changing the world, by planting those seeds in your brain. So you guys inspire me. Now go do it. Awesome. Thanks for letting me come
We
in.
just wanted to give you
Aww.
from Empowered, we appreciate it.
I just love that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, you guys are great.
Should I open it now or wait to take it home?
Whatever you like.
I'm curious.
Oh my goodness.
It's heavy. What is it? It's a mystery. I love surprises.
To open it.
A lot of packaging here.
Oh, cool. I don't have my glasses on. Appreciation from Empowered. I love it. Thank you guys. I'm going to put this right on my desk where everyone can see it. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thanks so much for coming
Thank
in.
you, of course. My pleasure. You guys enjoy the rest of your
You too.
Empowered.
Thank